In the early months of 1944, southern England was transformed into the largest military staging ground the world had ever seen. A tidal wave of men and machines was gathering, a force so immense its purpose was undeniable. An invasion was coming. Across the English Channel, the German High Command watched and waited. They knew the Allies were coming. Their intelligence confirmed a massive buildup of troops, tanks, and aircraft. But the two most important questions in the world remained unanswered. Where and when? The fate of the war, the future of Europe, hinged on the answers. If the Germans guessed correctly, they could concentrate their elite panzer divisions and turn the invasion beaches into a bloodbath, a catastrophe from which the Allies might never recover. The success of D-Day, therefore, depended not on overwhelming force alone, but on an element far more powerful: absolute surprise. To achieve this, the Allies would not just fight a war of bullets and bombs. They would wage a war of the mind, a battle of wits on a scale never before imagined. They would create a phantom, a grand illusion so powerful it would deceive Adolf Hitler himself. This is the incredible true story of Operation Fortitude and the ghost army that saved D-Day. To understand the deception, you must first understand the logic. For the German generals, the question of where had an obvious answer: the Pas de Calais. It was the shortest crossing point over the English Channel, a mere 21 miles from Dover to Calais. A successful landing there would provide the most direct route into the industrial heartland of Germany. The Germans, priding themselves on logic and military doctrine, were certain the Allies would choose this path. And so they prepared for it. They turned the Pas de Calais into the crown jewel of the Atlantic Wall. The heaviest guns, the thickest concrete, and their most battle-hardened troops were concentrated there, creating a fortress within a fortress. The Allied planners knew this. They had studied every inch of the French coast, and they had chosen a different target: Normandy. The beaches were wider, the crossing was longer, and the logistics were a nightmare. But the defenses were weaker. The entire Allied strategy rested on this gamble. But for it to work, they had to make the Germans believe the opposite. They needed to convince Hitler and his generals that Normandy, if attacked at all, was merely a diversion, a feint designed to draw forces away from the real prize: Calais. This monumental task of misdirection was given a code name: Operation Fortitude. The centerpiece of Operation Fortitude was an act of pure theatrical genius: the creation of an entire army group out of thin air. It was called FUSAG, the First United States Army Group. On paper, FUSAG was a formidable force of over 1 million men, composed of both real and fictional divisions, poised in southeastern England, directly opposite Calais. In reality, it was a ghost. The props for this grand play were ingenious. Across the fields of Kent and Essex, an army of illusions appeared. There were hundreds of inflatable rubber tanks, so light a few men could lift them, but utterly convincing from a German reconnaissance plane flying miles above. There were wooden and canvas aircraft parked on dummy airfields. In harbors and estuaries, fake landing craft made of plywood and canvas floated, waiting for an invasion that would never come. Entire divisions were represented by nothing more than rows of empty tents and carefully placed fake supply dumps. But an army is more than just equipment. It's a living, breathing, communicating entity. This is where Operation Quicksilver came in. A special unit of radio operators worked tirelessly, generating thousands of fake radio messages every day. They mimicked the chatter of a massive army preparing for war. Orders for non-existent units, requests for supplies that would never be delivered, even complaints from fictional soldiers about the English weather. German listening posts across the channel intercepted this traffic, dutifully decoded it, and reported a massive active army preparing to strike Calais. The illusion was flawless. Every great play needs a leading man. And for FUSAG, the Allies chose the one general the Germans feared above all others: George S. Patton. By 1944, Patton had earned a reputation as the Allies' most audacious, aggressive, and successful battlefield commander. The German High Command was obsessed with him. They were convinced that such a monumental undertaking as the invasion of Europe could only be led by a general of his caliber. The Allies used this reputation as the ultimate lure. Patton, who was actually in temporary disgrace for slapping a soldier in Sicily, was publicly given command of the Phantom Fusag. He played his role with theatrical flair. He was made highly visible, touring southeastern England, delivering fiery speeches to divisions that existed only on paper, and inspecting rows of inflatable tanks. German intelligence agents dutifully reported Patton's every move. For them, his presence opposite Calais was the final, irrefutable proof. The main attack had to be there. Patton was the key to the entire deception. But fake armies and a celebrity general weren't enough. To truly sell the lie, the Allies needed to control the flow of information directly into the heart of German intelligence. They needed spies. And thanks to a remarkable counter-espionage achievement, they had the perfect network. It was called the double-cross system. By 1944, British intelligence, MI5, had successfully identified, captured, and turned every single German agent operating in Britain. These double agents were now secretly working for the Allies, feeding their German handlers a carefully curated stream of truth mixed with devastating lies. The star of this clandestine network was a man codenamed Garbo. His real name was Juan Pujol Garcia, a fiercely anti-fascist Spaniard who had, on his own initiative, convinced German intelligence he wanted to spy for them. Operating from Lisbon, he fabricated reports so detailed and believable that his German handlers thought he was in London, running a network of sub-agents. The truth was, Garbo was inventing it all, using tourist guidebooks and train timetables. When the British finally realized his genius, they brought him to England and made him the linchpin of their deception. Garbo's fictional spy network grew to 27 phantom agents, each with their own personality and access to different information. Through them, he fed the Germans a symphony of misinformation, all pointing to Fusag and the impending attack on Calais. He was so convincing, so trusted, that in July 1944, his German masters awarded him the Iron Cross for his services to the Reich, an award personally approved by Hitler. Garbo was not alone. Agents like Brutus, a Polish officer, and Tricycle, a Yugoslavian playboy, sent their own corroborating reports, creating an echo chamber of deception that the German High Command could not ignore. On the morning of D-Day, as Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, Garbo sent his most important message. He reported the landings to his German controller, but insisted with great urgency that it was all a feint. A large-scale diversionary tactic, the real invasion, he warned, led by Patton's massive Fusag, was still to come at the Pas de Calais. And in the fortified bunkers of the Third Reich, they believed him. Operation Fortitude's greatest test did not come on D-Day itself, but in the critical days and weeks that followed. The Allied foothold in Normandy was fragile. A swift, powerful counterattack by Germany's elite panzer divisions could have driven them back into the sea. And just a short drive away, sitting idle in the Pas de Calais, was the entire German 15th Army, a force of 19 divisions, including several powerful armored units. This was the force that could have crushed the Normandy invasion. But they didn't move. Why? Because Hitler and his high command were still waiting for the real invasion. They were waiting for Patton. The deception continued at full tilt. The phantom radio chatter of Fusag didn't stop, it intensified. Garbo and his network sent frantic reports of Patton's army being held back by bad weather, but preparing to launch the decisive assault on Calais any day now. For 7 long weeks after D-Day, the Allies kept up the act. And for 7 long weeks, Hitler kept his most powerful reserves in place, staring at inflatable tanks and listening to ghost transmissions, while the real battle for France was being fought and won in Normandy. That crucial delay gave the Allies the time they desperately needed to pour men and materiel onto the continent, to consolidate their beachhead, and to prepare for the breakout that would ultimately seal Germany's fate. Operation Fortitude was, without question, one of the most successful and consequential deception operations in the history of warfare. It was a masterpiece of intelligence, psychology, and pure unadulterated theater. The inflatable tanks, the fake radio signals, the phantom armies, and the daring double agents were not sideshows to the main event. They were an integral part of the victory. By convincing the enemy to look the wrong way at the most critical moment, Operation Fortitude saved thousands upon thousands of Allied lives. It neutralized Germany's most powerful reserves without firing a single real shot. It stands as a timeless reminder that in war, the greatest battles are not always fought on the beaches or in the fields. Sometimes they are fought in the shadows, in the ether, and in the minds of the enemy. The story of D-Day will forever be a tale of incredible bravery and sacrifice, but it is also the story of the greatest lie ever told. The lie that secured victory, the lie of the ghost army that fooled Hitler.